I never imagined finding myself in bed with a. But here we are, Pastor. And no, I'm not. It wasn't a metaphor or exaggeration. Some people had a dream that came true. It was extremely sinful. Let me explain. However, I reside in one of those small towns. Locations where everyone is aware of each other's drama while feigning civility about it. We have 2 bars, 1 grocery shop, and, naturally, a small white church with wooden pews that squeak and a bell that rings on Sunday mornings too early. I wasn't very inclined to attend church, but I went that Sunday primarily because I had nothing else to do. So I was interested. A new preacher was coming, and I assumed that everyone was talking about it. Another elderly man wearing silver would be there. Too many sermons, a hoarse voice, and hair, about wearing tight clothing and going to hell. Jeans. But as soon as she approached, I couldn't breathe on that pulpit. Wasn't at all what I had anticipated. She exuded this serene assurance and grace. Speech pattern tall, sharp shoulders. Her long, dark hair was nicely tied up. And her chest was embraced by the blouse in a manner that caused me to forget every hymn I gazed at her mouth while she spoke, never hearing, discussed grace, and I started to become hot. Like a dirty secret that runs down my spine. She saw that I was staring. And she gave me a small smile. Small smile, but it was plenty that I didn't hear even a single word from the remaining. Preaching her hands and lips were all I could see. She flicked her long fingers through the Bible so slowly that I had to ask myself what. That was the only thing those hands could accomplish. Day it began. I stayed after the service. Like a clumsy teenager in the foyer. I acted as though I was reading the announcements on. I was actually on the bulletin board. But, observing her as she greeted the audience. Firmly, with the same gentle grin. Pleasant hugs and handshakes with the elderly. She acted as though she knew she didn't fit in with this small, dusty town. However, she was present anyhow, and I was unable to stop observing. I've finally come near. Don't even recall my words. Something stupid like, I like the sermon. The forgiveness section. She looked directly into my eyes and declared, I'm happy it resonated with you. Forgiveness is crucial, particularly when temptation smacks hard. My heart choked as a result. Strange leap, did she just say that? Did she know why I began going to every Sunday at church? Front row lip gloss, with shaven legs, and I did wear tighter, shorter dresses as well, although she never mentioned anything other than each time I went over my legs, I noticed her look, and each time she discussed avoiding temptation, eyes would briefly focus on me as well. I was going crazy for a while, till one day I noticed a sign-up sheet in the entrance. Organized church volunteers are needed. Wednesday at 7:00 p.m. In the storage room. Guess who signed up first when I arrived that evening? Wearing a tight tank top and pants just informal enough to act as like I didn't try. She had already arrived and was organizing old boxes into hymnals. She grinned as she noticed me. I'm glad you came, I added, and I meant that it was hot in the storage room. Dusty and claustrophobic. We toiled side by side. I tried to concentrate by not talking about anything on the boxes, but her fresh, delicate aroma. I was dying of perfume. And then it occurred when I dropped a pile of folders, stooped to retrieve them, and I promise, I got up because I swear her eyes were on my ass. She turned slowly and gave me a nod. Humiliation, only this inscrutable expression on her face. Gaze. After which she stated, you enjoy. Don't you want to cause trouble? I froze. My stomach turned over, and I opened my mouth. But she moved closer, but nothing came out. I could feel her close enough. Breath across my neck. I've observed how you observe me, she whispered in a quiet voice. I swallowed hard on Sunday. And what if you're not alone, she added, smiling, expanded slowly and perilously. But then we should finish up, she said, taking a step back. Voice returned to normal, saying, I wanted to scream. I hurried home that evening. Fell on my bed and allowed replaying her hands with her fantasies running wild. Clutching my hips and putting pressure on me. That disorganized shelf of storage, the heat of electric tingles ran through me at that instant. Leaving me craving and out of breath. After that night, she touched him much more. I was unable to concentrate in the storage room. Straight, she hadn't made contact with me. Although she didn't actually kiss me. It was worse since I realized she wanted it as well, and she was adept at keeping back. I was not every Sunday. But it was much too amazing. She would endure torment after that. The pulpit wearing those form-fitting dresses and high heels resemble human temptation. Discussing self-control and internal strength while looking me in the eyes. She would grin at the elderly people so they wouldn't. Then turn to face me, looking at me with, behind her eyes, this subtle warmth, and I'd try to sit there with your thighs clenched tightly. To pretend that my outfit didn't conceal how, after duty, I was fiercely devoted to her. I made an effort not to appear desperate, but I required further justifications to be with her. So, I began to volunteer for everything. I'm there to set up the bake sale. I'll bring the brush and paint the fence. Teaching Bible study, which I even joined, despite not having read a complete verse in. The Bible study group was small for many years. Me, a shy teenager, and a couple of older women. And her preacher woman, of course. She'd place your lips across from mine and wrap them around a straw in her iced coffee that appeared to slow motion sin. The gang would be discussing the Bible, and I'd be wondering how it is while gazing at her mouth. Would feel like on my skin the evening following. She remained to lock while everyone else went. I feigned forgetting my keys just so, since I observed her, I would have a reason to stay. Stroll along the church's deserted aisle. The sound of her heels on the wooden floor. You forgot your keys again. You turned to me. Perhaps all I wanted to do was see you. This time, she stepped without smiling. I could smell her scent again as I got closer. Additionally, I didn't turn away this time. Did she believe I hadn't seen you? I felt my knees go when she stated that in a hushed voice. You wear those tiny skirts. And you're weak. Your lashes are always the first to offer. Heat creeping across my skin as I bit my lip. She continued, you think I don't feel it too? With a beating heart, I reached out and her wrist was touched, but she didn't pull away. But she later shut her eyes and released her hand if I began. She said, I won't be doing anything with you. I was able to pause and gaze at her breath. Heavy. Please don't stop her. Briefly appeared tormented, as though she was engaged in an internal conflict. And then she took a step back, adjusted her blouse, and go home, please. That evening, I was her voice as she struggles to fall asleep. Stuck in my mind that I won't stop if I start. I was heated and irritated when I woke up. If you understand what I mean. Down there, a hand moved beneath the blankets. Imagining her mouth, her hands tightly clutching me. I chewed my pillow to get to that peak. Be silent, but I still want her more. The following Sunday, she gave a sermon on self-control, and I nearly burst out laughing. She was talking loudly about fighting temptation to turn away from sin. Additionally, her eyes remained fixed on, glancing at me as if she were losing it. Own war. She inquired after service if I could assist with back office cleaning. Yes. I spoke too hastily. We were in that small, dusting the desk and cleaning the room. Bookshelves before her hand touched them. We both paused, and she remained motionless. I gazed up at her, but neither did I. Appeared hungry, so I leaned in a little. She didn't stop me from kissing him. Nearly touched, but she muttered. I muttered, don't make me do this. Return, then let me. She was successful, took hold of my waist and held me in place. Her breath against the filing cabinet. Her thigh slid and was hot on my ear. Just before our mouths, but between mine. She withdrew, saying, this isn't right. I was left standing there when she said that. Breathless, body aching, and heart racing. I didn't immediately depart. Instead, I stood. She wasn't kissing me yet, but she was trembling. However, she had her hands on both her thigh and me. Was between me, and with God's grace, she was avoiding me after she wanted more. Her thigh at that moment in the office. Her breath on my neck between mine. Withdrawn entirely. No further invitations. No more looks. Not even a grin. At first, I believed I might have dreamt everything. Perhaps she had regained consciousness. Felt bad about it, or perhaps she was attempting to. I had to force myself to stop thinking. Regarding her, she was all over my dreams, in my brain, with a gentle pain underneath my lower abdomen each morning. I desired, like though I had never desired anything in my. I finished playing coy and lived my life. On Wednesday evening, I arrived at the church alone. I was familiar with her routine. Stayed late to prepare after Bible study. I waited because sermons tend to lock up neat stuff. Until the structure was almost deserted. I discovered her in the chapel as I entered. Hunched over a table, lights low, making notes. She looked up in surprise. "I know you shouldn't be here." She gazed. She swallowed hard at me as I walked. Nearer, quieter, my heels echoing. I paused gently on the ancient hardwood floor. "You're avoiding me." Directly in front of her. "I don't trust myself." Even though she didn't deny it. She said, "Sharp and soft eyes around you." Simultaneously. "And I have a calling and a duty." I moved in closer. "You also have a body," she said. For a moment, she closed her eyes and her hands. "Your fists are clasped on the table," she said. "I think this is easy for me. Believe I don't perspire when I wake up. My breath caught when I thought about you. You desire the honesty," she said. "You make me insane. I've completed tasks while keeping you in mind in this church. I nearly can't get my legs back. Distributed. What are you waiting for?" Then, I muttered that she appeared tormented. But also, she approached me carefully. Hungry. She halted as her fingers began to shake. Her hands were inches from me, cupping my jaw. Her lips nearly touched mine as she leaned in. She said, "If we do this, you don't act like it's not serious." I muttered, "Don't want innocent." She finally gave me a gentle kiss. Just a taste, then becomes more intense. Hot and untidy. And in desperation, her hands closed around my waist. Drew me in so I could touch her nails. Via my shirt. And we staggered in the direction of the. She softly pushed me down onto the pews. Climbed on my lap after sitting on a cushioned bench. "Ought not to do this," she muttered. "Then don't stop." I pressed on my throat. She kissed me down my neck and whispered back. I sensed her hands straying everywhere. I tugged as if she already understood my body. She unbuttoned her blouse loosely using trembling fingers. Snug black lace bra. She wasn't heavenly. She had soft skin and muscles. I gave her a gentle shoulder bite tonight. "Yes, you're playing with growls. Fire," she whispered in a hoarse voice. "Then, burn me." She reached up and touched my skirt, sending a swiftly pass through me as her fingertips followed up legs, causing my body to react with a gasp. I could sense how hot she was at every turn, and disturbed me because I could feel the heat rising. Every second. "You seem to have forgotten. Should wear some drawers," she teased. "Well, I didn't intend to be saved tonight." She chuckled softly and kissed me once more, gently caressed me, and I was able to follow her rhythm with ease. We walked together in that darkness. Her wrist. Chapel as if we didn't give a damn about who saw. We weren't two women who disobeyed all the rules. She lost control in the novel. And the entire body trembled on the pew. And her forehead as I opened my eyes. She was breathing as she was crushed against me. "She has wild, steely eyes and is going to hell. I'll see you there," I murmured in a whisper. Grinning after everything that happened that evening. Changed. She stopped avoiding me. She called, texted, and invited me over. She would occasionally say, "We're just going to speak." We never simply spoke. She began, referring to them as prayer nights. However, there was no prayer is being place. Unless you count how loudly I called her name. She would tell everyone that she was holy. Mentoring me, assisting me in finding my beliefs. And perhaps she was simply not as nobody anticipated the first time I went to her place and put on a basic summer attire and omitted the underwear only to observe her response. Her gaze froze as she opened the door. Went directly to my chest as I observed her. She said, "You're testing me, so swallow hard." I entered and said in a whisper, Already failed. Her home had the odor of books and vanilla have crosses on them. Scripture passages on the wall in a stylish frames. After that, I was pressed up, licking her against her kitchen counter neck as if I were going hungry. She attempted to appear calm, which she actually did, but she lifted me as soon as I nibbled her earlobe, lifted me up and brought me into the bedroom, placed me on the bed as if I were a subtle, but the manner in which she took that. Nothing delicate about this little summer outfit. I saw her take off her clothes gradually, as if she were relinquishing. Her blouse is the only thing holding her back. Struck the ground, followed by her skirt. Tell me to stop, she whispered, and I gave her a look before saying. She climbed and said, you better come over here. Over, going down slowly and deliberately, as though she was fully aware of what she was doing. Whispering, I dreamed about this. Her tongue found me every single night. And I let out a loud cry. No more church walls. Just skin and sweat. No faking, she said, once again pushed me over the edge. And she continued to do so, treating my body as though it represented anything investigated. Every inch as though she was picking it up by heart, and she murmured something in my ear. Sounded more like admissions than. After praying, we lay entangled in sheets. The room continues to reverberate with a. She put her head down and listened to our breathing. I'm not who they think I am, I said on my chest. Am. To which she answered, neither am I. I did this for the first time. I grinned. Not with a lady. You're doing fantastic, she chuckled before becoming serious. If they learn that all I ran for will be lost. I'm not running my fingers through her hair. Good. May I ask you to confess at the altar? She spoke softly because all I wanted was. Must be in one location at the moment. And you know, we didn't discuss where that is. We didn't refer to it as love. But the way she looked at me and hugged me. Later, something started to grow, and we both were aware that it began with murmurs. The women at Bible study initially stopped, grinning at me, followed by the expressions that judgmental stares with a tight lip only. Church women who are bored can pull one off. During coffee hour on Sunday, I heard Sister Doris murmurs to someone else. I'm constantly lingering near the preacher reel. She wears those shorts, isn't she? Skirts, most likely seeking attention. Laughed when I nearly choked on my lemon bar. The preacher wasn't entirely incorrect. Attempted to be silent, but she was sloppy and obsessed. She would grip my wrist. I was late as I passed her office. Night texts that simply say, I'm considering you. At one point, I noticed her gazing at me. Full on stare, mouth a little bit midsman. I grinned and carefully crossed my legs. Stuttering on the subsequent verse. We attempted to be taciturn, but strongly dislikes secrets, and it seems that neither did due to the fact that one evening I was on her desk when she walked in on us. Performing the unimaginable. He gasped and fell. He backed out his keys as if he had spotted a. We froze. Monster. And she withdrew. What? Prey is into women, but I'm not sure now. And taking care of his own affairs that week. Church politics erupted during board sessions. Were seen as too worldly in her sermons. The spirit of the preacher was claimed by one woman. Felt tainted, a courteous way of saying that she been very content recently. So she contacted. I was pacing her living room too much. Half-buttoned, stressed-out shirts there. Preparing something that could result in my removal. Approached me from behind and put my arms around her. Surrounding her for solace. Then offer them a actual cause of her turning to me. What I drew her near. Let's make it worthwhile. Controversy. She then gave me a kiss that I thought we couldn't be stopped by At the conclusion of the week, she received a call from desire me to take a vacation. So I sat next to her. Do you regret it? She asked, looking at the couch, at me without saying anything. She remained at my location for days following the events. It seemed ideal at first, but we couldn't get enough of one another. Each touch remaining. Every look made my stomach turn. Flip. We remained close and laughed all the time. Continually encircling one another as though we never desired for the world to separate us. However, suddenly something changed, and it began. She didn't say, good morning, as small as Didn't grab my hand earlier when we did not curl up with me under the TV covers as she had in the past. But she was still not quite here. But one morning I entered the room with a striking hairstyle. Untidy, heated skin after taking a shower, wearing nothing underneath her old shirt. She raised her head from the Bible she was holding, smiled wearily and remarked, "You're." That was all. No tease, no beauty. Jovial grin that is only a compliment. Then, going back to reading, we continued to share silence. Moments, however, felt different since she was. Her hugs didn't stay with her. The kisses were gentle but not intense. Unlike prior to and following that, she would float into her own universe. No mutual giggling, no. Just stillness, murmuring beneath the blankets. I wore her in an attempt to bring her back. Her favorite things played. Her favorite tea was enhanced by music, whispered in her ear in the manner I was accustomed to melt her. But all she did was smile courteously and retired to bed early one evening. Sitting quietly on the couch, her voice was serene when she stated, "I believe I must leave." I blinked and said, "Back to church, to everything." She nodded, and I missed the routine, the tranquility that I left behind. Gazed. "Are you implying that this was an error?" Not only didn't she say no, but she also didn't say yes.